Vaibhav. In today's session of Visual JForex, I will be demonstrating to you the use of indicator named Hilbert transform instantaneous trend line. This is an signal filter usually used in the digital signal processing, and in late 1990s it was also adapted for the trading purposes by John Ehler, and we can credit him for designing and developing various indicators. And this is one of the such indicators. It is classified under the other blocks in the indicator series. Today is the turn of the HT trend line, that is Hilbert transformed instantaneous trend line. We head to the JForex Visual JForex board developed by Dukascopy Bank SA. Here you will find these HT trendline indicator amongst the other blocks. Here it is. I have also included the brief description for it. We are not really going into its mathematical formula, how it is calculated. It is a bit complicated, and you will need understanding of other concepts also in physics. So for us, the job of calculating and plotting will be done by the automated setup, and we will more focus on this indicator block and how to customize this parameter, and what are the probable outcomes which can be utilized to design and develop the profitable algorithmic structure. Here, as you can see, we can utilize this HT trend line more or less like an moving average, but one advantage of the instantaneous trend line using Hilbert transform is that it won't really have much of a time lag, and you will get, as the name suggests, the instantaneous trend line, and as a result of that, even if there are swift changes in the price action, price moves for the underlying instrument, you will see it being reflected in no time in the Hilbert transform instantaneous trend line, and that is one of the benefit of using this indicator. Here it is. We can't really customize it much. It is plotted. It is actually the joint. It is formed by joining the individual points for the Hilbert transform, and we use it as a trend determining indicator. We see whether the trend line is on the rise or it is falling, and depending on the direction of the trend line, you can pretty much gauge the trend for the underlying instrument. And as we are well familiar with the moving averages, you can pretty much figure out the structure which will also be appropriate for this trend line. One of the basic structure is that you can look for the change in course for the trend line. Suppose for a quite a while it has been in the upward direction, and then after a run on the higher side, if it moves and if it starts to decline, you can start looking for the short sale trade as long as the price action is concentrated below this Hilbert transform trend line, and vice versa for the buy trades. You can see if the price is able to sustain itself above the Hilbert transform instantaneous trend line, and also the trend line is curving to the upside. You can look for the buy side trade, and you can figure out what is the underlying momentum, and you can trade on the both the sides. But as you can see here, we see that the trend line changes course and it starts to rise for a while, but it is not really able to sustain the momentum, and in a short period of time the trend again changes. But as I said, for that we can utilize this price action. We can put in certain conditions that for at least foresee, you can say for like 10 to 12 hours, or any time period of your choice, you can stipulate the condition that the price should sustain itself in the desired territory, and then only you can look for the fresh trade. And as you can see here, it would have gone in for a good amount of profit. In this case, here after 4 or 5 hours above this trend line, again we see the price dipping on the lower side, and then somewhere around here the price trend line again changes course, but in just couple of hours the price action is above it. So we can reduce or we can eliminate such kind of moves, and we can simply try to see if any move is likely to sustain itself or not, and only then we can think about going in for the fresh positioning. So, and even in that scenario we are of course going to get the false trades, and in some instances even after meeting all the conditions the trade might not really end in profit, and we have to utilize the stop loss to cut down on our possible losses in the scenario where we might end up on the wrong side, and once in a while the trades will indeed go wrong, and you have to cut losses in such instances, and for that we have to rely on the stop loss, and we have to make sure that the risk reward ratio is in our favor, that if the trade goes in profit we should be able to make a good amount of money, and if it ends up in loss we shouldn't be losing too much money. So that's how we look for trading opportunities. And other instances of utilizing this Hilbert transform instantaneous trend line is that you simply keep trading with the trend. If the HT trend line has been rising and rising and it is continuing in its original trajectory, you can bring in other indicators which can help you figure out the the entry points with the help of other indicators, and then you can utilize this trend line as a major factor while trading, and you use it in conjunction with other indicators, and that way also I think you would be able to figure out the entry and exit points for profitable trading opportunities. So to customize these indicators we have to look at the parameters. First thing first, we have to define these default instruments. In most of the cases we can use the Euro USD, or in all of the cases, and most of the traders trade in the Euro USD, but if you want to design the algorithmic structure for any other currency pair you can do so. So for example, in today's session we will utilize USD JPY as our instrument of choice. Now the time period can be of 10 seconds going all the way to 1 month. We have all these options provided to us. If you want to design something like 5 minutes strategy you can do so. Simply you have to choose the time period as the 5 minutes. Shift is the look back period. If you want to take into account the current data then the shift should be at 0. If you want to go back in time then the look back period, that is shift, should be defined appropriately. If you want the output value 5 candlesticks period back, then you have to put the 5 here and you will have the output value which was prevalent 5 candlesticks period back. Let us change this chart to 5 minutes, and we also change the instrument. So this is how it will work. We have this USD JPY chart now plotted on the 5-minute time frame, and here I have added the HT trend line, the Hilbert transformed instantaneous trend line, and this is how it will work on the lower time frame. And you can try to design the system for the intraday purposes using these lower time frames. If you want to go for the swing trade, then you can increase the time period for the candlestick like 4 hourly or even daily. So it's always up to you. Then coming to the settings, we have to see on which side we want the calculation to be done, whether it should be on the bid side or on the ask side. Both the options are open. And also the applied price, depending on the applied price, you will have different output values. And when you are comparing the ST trend line values, you have to make sure that the applied price is from the same source, whether it is the closing price, the open price, high price or low price. We get all these options, and we have to see what is the appropriate applied price. As you can see here, we can change this applied price, and the plotting will be different for each type of applied price to some extent. Median price, if we take typical price, the chart is changing. Most of the change is observed when we move it from high price to low price. So this is how this Hilbert transform instantaneous trend line works. So that's it from my side for today's session. I hope you have been able to understand the use of this indicator, and you will be trying on your own to design and develop the algorithmic setup using this indicator. I'm welcome for the feedback. Do let me know. Thank you all for joining in. Goodbye.